It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, a central Kansas company is out to revolutionize farming with robots. See what it's all about and why it should matter to all of us, whether we farm or not. Also, this Wichita man likes to express his individuality for all his neighbors to see. Learn what it's all about and just what he's thinking. Then we go underground to tour a hidden place from the past that continues to amaze visitors to this very day. And in our Kansas Wild Edge report, see the battle of ducks versus falcons. It's a bird-eat-bird world out there. I'm Sierra Scott. Those stories are queued up and ready to roll on this week's edition of Positively Kansas.
Positively Kansas is brought to you in part by...
Before investing your hard-earned money, make sure your financial advisor understands your objectives. Mark Douglas, CFP, serving our community for over 20 years, providing customized financial solutions that focus on the individual.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas serves more than 930,000 Kansans in various programs. Independent, member-owned. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, supports KPTS.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank Trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Kansans are on the cutting edge of what could be a revolution in farming. Imagine robots doing the work and eliminating the need to spread toxic chemicals to kill weeds. Chris Frank reports from Reno County on what some call a game changer in producing affordable, environmentally friendlier crops.
It's not what you expect to see driving across a Kansas field of soybeans. These are bots, short for robotics, and the bots are navigating up and down the rows, cutting down unwanted weeds. We've long gotten used to movies depicting working robots. Wall-E from Disney's Pixar movie looks to be a similar size to the weed-eating robots in this story. But the weed-whacking bots aren't programmed with Wall-E's penchant for getting into mischief. These bots also seem small compared to the massive size of most farm machinery like combines and tractors. Yet, these bots are at work in large fields like this soybean field near Haven.
This is really the first generation that are really operational in a field and actually starting to clean up fields. And so there'll be a lot of improvements that we're already working on for these.
The bots have cameras and their own local internet to communicate with the bot handlers in the trailer. These technicians monitor the bots on their computers in the trailer. Greenfield programmers wrote the machine vision software to help the bots navigate in the fields. The bots run on batteries which have 6 to 8 hours of power between charges. Clint Brower is one of the founders of Greenfield Robotics. The startup company's mission is to get chemicals out of our food.
My goal when I came back from LA 10 years ago was to reduce the chemical load and hopefully eliminate over time.
Brower mentions Los Angeles, but first he grew up on a Reno County, Kansas farm near Haven. He now operates MG Honor Farms near Cheney, named in honor of his grandmother. This farm is sort of a test bed for growing vegetables without chemicals. He hopes to apply lessons learned here to the larger crops of corn, milo, and soybeans.
You know, I honestly, growing up, did not enjoy farming. We had a lot of problems with equipment and stuff like that, and when you're a kid, you'd rather be out at the lake or something than working ground.
That's why he first went west to California to work in the then new internet world. That got him connected with high-tech companies. So in returning to Kansas, Brower is using connections made in his earlier career to help get Greenfield Robotics off the ground.
Most of the robotics startups in agriculture are in Europe or they are in specialty crops in California.
But he says those fields of specialty crops like lettuce production measure in the thousands of acres. Row crops like soybeans, corn, and milo measure in the tens of millions of acres. So he and the team hope their bots will be used by farmers someday rather than chemicals to eradicate moisture and nutrient-stealing weeds. Pigweed is a major enemy to farmers.
That's your number one problem, because once pigweed, for example, gets to about a foot tall, it can grow 3 inches a day. And once it gets a foot tall, it becomes resistant to almost any spray.
And he says those chemical sprays sometimes drift into neighbors' fields, killing their crops and resulting in expensive lawsuits. He says farmers' costs are increasing for seeds, which will tolerate weed chemicals, and for weed-killing chemicals.
And margins are getting tighter for farmers, and at the same time they have to spend more per acre, and the efficacy is dropping.
Engineers and technicians work out the bugs in their bot systems here in hopes their bots will become marketable.
Trying to break it, see where your common failures are, and how do you strengthen those up to get those to quit so it's more durable once we do get it out in the field.
This is a time of research and development for the engineers and technicians with these bots. They're rare, of course, but at some point they hope these bots become commonplace on U.S. farms.
There's always constant tweaking, constant tuning. We're learning as well. Whenever these run, every day these run, you learn something new. Every day, the thing that's impossible, that wouldn't happen in a million years, happens every day. And that's just something you got to work with. That's engineering.
So when they're going down a row straight, the computer drives it. Nobody has to do anything except watch them.
For now, these guys are monitoring a couple of bots at a time. Later, they'll watch over 5 to 10 bots at a time. Brower says eventually the trailer, with bots, will arrive at a field. The bots will be turned on and know where to go to work from GPS coordinates and drone video.
And so that's where we're shooting for by the end of the season, is where we can kind of see where we could be, where no one actually has to be in the field monitoring.
He says this is revolutionary technology, and what now is in experimentation and development could someday become commonplace in agriculture. This is Chris Frank for Positively Kansas.
Brower says the company is able to do things now which were not possible only 5 to 10 years ago because of progress in technology, including smaller and better batteries to power those bots. Now for something to smile about. A 75-year-old man who has found joy in retirement through an art form that many people know nothing about, though they may have seen it and wondered, what is that? Anthony Powell paid him a visit.
There's really nothing out of the ordinary about this Northwest Wichita neighborhood until you reach the home of Gary Pendergrass.
It's magic to me. Some people think I'm the magician, but I don't know. It just happens.
What it is called steampunk, an art form based on ideas and designs taken from 19th century steam-powered machines. A former home builder, Gary was looking for something to do with his hands when he retired in 2011. A well-known Wichita business owner would pave the way for Gary's new passion.
Went to the home show, and Hatman Jack had a hat with some gears on it. And I saw that and asked him about it, and he said, it's steampunk, look it up on the internet. So I did.
Gary found a lot of information. We asked him to boil it down.
Well, it's rooted in Victorian science fiction and the Industrial Revolution, so that things mechanical were thought of as possible to achieve unlimited ends.
Inspired, Gary went to work. And as you can see, he hasn't stopped since. The majority of his work is the steampunk genre, but he's ventured into other areas of art as well. Most gratifying are the responses he gets. People are always stopping by, like his neighbor Joel Folds.
Yeah, just to see what he's come up with next. Have you seen Einstein? Einstein's fun.
Joel and Gary both say they've never heard anything but positives from the neighborhood about the art. And Gary tells us the city knows about it, but has left him alone. Meanwhile, Gary also tells us that he has visitors from all over America and the world. He says many have the same reaction.
There are the people who will stop and almost tear up and say, "You've made my day." And I've had them say, "You make my week or my year."
Gary believes the art takes people back to their childhoods, and that's why they get emotional. What makes Gary the very happiest, though, is when young children stare in awe and amazement at his amazing creations. Gary knows that he's creating memories that will last a lifetime.
See, I have like a 2 or 3 year old who wants to stay and says, "Mommy, I love this." You know, I mean, to me, I'm hoping to plant something that's inspirational to their lives. I remember in those times in my own life when certain things did that for me.
The innocence of childhood.
Well, the beginnings of life.
It just goes to show that in life, you're never too old to start something new. Gary was 66 when he began his steampunk art adventure. And with the joy he has provided so many people, he plans on creating for many more years. For Positively Kansas, I'm Anthony Powell.
As you could tell, Gary's yard is so packed with art, there's really no room for more. He still creates steampunk at his home shop, but has had to find other places to display it, like a school where he volunteers. Now it's time for a journey underground. Chris Frank does some digging and unearths the story behind a hidden area of town that you can visit if you know where to look.
Many Kansas communities have their own peculiarities, which make the towns endearing. Ellenwood in Barton County is one of those. Ellenwood was settled in the 1870s along the old Santa Fe Trail. The town grew quickly with the coming of the railroad. And what gives Ellenwood a charm that has some wanting to visit is what's found underground.
People just are amazed when they come up here and see what we have.
Rick Casagrande owns the Emporium, an antique and consignment store in Ellenwood. The store's above ground, but it's what's under the store that is attention-getting.
It's interesting that there were several towns in Kansas that originally had these tunnels, but we're the only ones that have them left that you can still get down and see what they were like. This is Tom Drake's harness shop. He was here in 1887 when the building was new.
Customers' horses, of course, remained above. But down here, Drake did wood and leather work for more than 3 decades until retiring in 1920.
Automobiles had arrived by then, and there was little need for a harness shop.
These tools are believed to be original. Casagrande says Drake simply left them because there wasn't a great demand for them after retiring.
Okay, this is actually the front door into the harness shop. Now we're in the actual underground, the tunnels.
These tunnels are under the sidewalks along Ellenwood's Main Street. Back in the late 1800s, they went for 2 city blocks on both sides of the street, with tunnels connecting each side of Main Street.
This side was the walk space for the people going up and down the street, and over on that side is storage bins for the coal.
These were coal bins for each of the stores, all stored underneath the city sidewalk in Ellenwood.
Each underground store had its own coal bin. The coal was shoveled in through these iron covers, which are still part of the sidewalks. The tunnel floors are now dirt, but back then there were boards. Tunnel walls are a combination of local limestone and locally made bricks. Stores had windows for shoppers, though now most are boarded up.
So this was kind of a main intersection. Over that direction is where you'd go to the Wolf Hotel. And this is one of 8 stairways that would have brought you down from above ground into the walkways.
The tunnels crossing under the streets and the highway have long since been filled in.
This is William Young's barber shop. He came to Ellenwood in 1882.
Barber shops were most likely first come, first serve. So while customers waited for a haircut and shave, they could play cards, have a drink, and a smoke. Some old-time barbers also perform surgeries such as tonsillectomies. Tonsillectomy tools are here in this barber shop.
Originally, going clear back to the Middle Ages, barbers were, as I said, called barber surgeons, and they would pull teeth and fix broken bones and mend wounds and that sort of thing.
Next to the barber was the bathhouse and steam laundry. In Ellenwood's underground, on this side of Main Street, you had a barber, a bath, a bar, and a brothel. Back then, you could get a bath for 15 cents. Now, if that was too rich for you, you could get a bath for a nickel, but with already used dirty water and someone else's towel. Yuck! These tin tubs were used with heated water from the coal stoves. Later, porcelain tubs were used once there was plumbing in 1905. And clothing was more precious back then. Here, 10 cents got a button replaced and $1 got a tear mended. These days, we would probably just buy a new shirt. Not then. So why did some Kansas towns have these tunnels?
What I've been told is that it was part of the traditional building methods for the people that settled here from southern Germany, and that it was common to access the businesses down in the basements by going down a stairway through the sidewalk into walkways underneath the sidewalks. In Kansas, it was easier to build down than it was to build up. First of all, we didn't have wood.
Kansas didn't have many trees then, certainly not the kind for building lumber, not even for fence posts, which is why many fence posts were limestone. The underground stores with connecting tunnels coincided with the time Ellenwood was prospering from railroad workers and the cattle trade. But the underground eventually fell out of favor.
They were pretty much abandoned around 1930.
And that was in line with the start of the Great Economic Depression, when many banks and other businesses closed. By the 1970s, parts of the underground were in such disrepair that the city closed and filled in some passageways. A couple of the underground passageways connected with the historic Wolf Hotel and bank building.
This is the tunnelway on our side of the street, which is underneath the bank and the hotel.
Beth Brummer works in the recently revived Wolf Hotel. She knows her way around the underground as a guide.
In here is our very first storefront. We have 3.
One of those stores was called the Drummer's Room. Drums weren't sold here, but there was a tunnel from the train depot to the hotel. Goods brought by the train were brought here to be sold in the stores.
And that's where it got its name as a drummer's room, because it was used to drum up business. So it was kind of wholesale. Back in the day, there were up to 11 saloons underground.
11 saloons equated to a lot of drinking back then. That despite Kansas prohibition from 1881 to 1948. That was much earlier prohibition than what came about from the 18th Amendment. Maybe that's why so many saloons were underground. This saloon was called the Sunflower Sample Room.
And it ran as a saloon probably until the late 30s, early 40s. And then about that time was when all of the businesses underground were closing and moving upstairs.
Businesses moved upstairs and into the sunshine. This Sunflower Sample Room is restored to what it might have looked like more than a century ago.
It's open every Friday and Saturday night from 8 to 1.
The saloon offers some of the drinks popular during Prohibition.
But of course, we can do any kind of drink that anybody would want.
When it closed, the city repurposed the saloon to make the city's first library in the 1940s. Today, tourists can examine old library cards now posted, some finding relatives who lived here. The restoration of Ellenwood's historic past isn't all underground. The historic Wolf Hotel has been restored in recent years. The hotel was easily accessed through the underground tunnels, including one from the train station. The Wolf Hotel originally opened in 1894.
Come on up.
Ellenwood resident Chris McCord started renovating the Wolf in 2013. McCord says his parents thought he was nuts when he said he wanted to purchase and restore the hotel. but with grit and determination, it's restored and open for business.
It's truly something that you have to come experience firsthand to really understand. But you know, we've worked hard to bring it back to life. And really our payment for that is when people come out to see us.
McCord says folks here try to create an atmosphere so tourists can get a taste of what life was like in the early days of this part of Kansas.
And our team works hard to make it a destination. So many things are right here in our own state that some of us don't even know about. And it's just an easy day trip to come see us.
And getting business from those day trippers is something folks in Ellenwood are hoping for as they revive the memories and tell the history of what life below and above ground was like in those early days. From Ellenwood, Chris Frank for Positively Kansas.
If you go, reservations are required. There are no tours on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Well, it's bird versus bird in a battle of the sky in this week's Kansas Wild Edge. Mike Blair shows us it's a perilous situation for sitting ducks.
When someone yells duck, you instinctively go low. Who knows the derivation of that term? But it certainly applies when the birds of its namesake see a falcon overhead. And the daily habits of migrating ducks always include an eye on the sky for their most feared predators, raptors that attack from out of the blue. A coyote or a bobcat would like to eat a duck. But since these waterfowl fly at sizzling speeds and spend much of their time on open water, land predators are pretty much stymied from sneaking up. Not so for bird hawks, equally skilled flyers that can snatch unwary ducks right from the surface. And for some birds of prey, like peregrines or prairie falcons, ducks are a preferred meal. Ducks know this, and they know what to watch for. Even at great distances, they spot their flying enemies. Vultures? No problem. Herons? They're welcomed as additional eyes to spot danger. Kestrels? Too small to be worrisome. These incomers cause no reaction. But other birds are cause for alarm. Eagles, large and powerful, are universally feared by waterfowl of all sizes. And for good reason. Falcons are flying rockets that can take most ducks with ease. Cooper's hawks are smaller, but they're fast and agile bird hawks respected by the smaller ducks. And marsh hawks, always at home in duck habitats, are constant possible threats. These hunters are always most interested in weak or crippled prey, so healthy ducks often arise and clear the area from a safe distance to help expose vulnerable targets. In flight, though, ducks are easier to catch and knock down by their faster predators. So ducks sometimes find it safer to stay on the water, where they can dive beneath the surface to avoid capture. Maybe the derivation is plain after all. Duck. The drama of such common and daily predator-prey encounters is seldom seen, but always fascinating to watch. It's part of the heartland's ever-changing kaleidoscope of color and life, always waiting for the eyes of lucky observers. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
Well, that's a wrap for us. Send your story ideas to positivelykansas@kpts.org. We always love hearing from you. Thanks for watching. Until we meet again, I'm Sierra Scott.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank Trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas serves more than 930,000 Kansans in various programs. Independent, member-owned. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, supports KPTS.
Before investing your hard-earned money, make sure your financial advisor understands your objectives. Mark Douglas, CFP, serving our community for over 20 years, providing customized financial solutions that focus on the individual.